Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to a brand new podcast. Yes, guys, the Full Throttle podcast is here tonight. And every Sunday, we're going to be bringing you the latest news from the world of motorsport. And I am your host, Charlie Tolhurst, and I'm live with the Full Throttle podcast across all three social media platforms, Twitter, YouTube, and also Facebook. That's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I am live on site. I'm joined by Formula One fan Jack Surridge to round up all the latest motorsport news this week. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Zach. You can call me Jack for a minute, then. You're so used to going with the other guy. Yeah, but hello. Anyway, you're right, mate. There you go.
Yes, hi, Zach. Oh. So, Zach, I want to start off with this massive amount of news because we've got so much to talk about tonight. And I want to start off with the Formula One Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. There is a lot to break down with this. And this race was chaotic. It was full of chaos and carnage, wasn't it? And Max Verstappen claims finally his first win of the season. But there was drama in the race, wasn't there, Zach?
Oh, my God. What a race. It was fantastic, Charlie. I mean, 2 races in a row now this has been going on. Oh, my goodness me. What a great first 2 races to start the season. And it's neck and neck in the championship now, really. I think it's Hamilton leading by just 1 point. And that fastest lap was crucial at the end. Although Hamilton, on the other hand, could have scored barely any points today if he had beached it into the gravel trap. That would have been quite the championship otherwise if he did beach it in the gravel trap. But yeah, my goodness me, Charlie. What a race. There's lots of drama. We nearly had a punch up in the middle of the track. It was a spectacular race, Charlie. It was so worth what it was. I mean, last time Bahrain I checked out, we apparently had record television figures for Sky. I'm not sure if we'll be breaking the record today, but goodness me, that race was worth it, Charlie. It was fantastic all around. Some nice surprises, a few comebacks, but yeah, brilliant job. It was a fantastic race, Charlie.
Wasn't it, Zach, as well? So much action. And I tell you what, it wasn't exactly the easiest for conditions. It was a wet start, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a wet start. Now, it was dry before about an hour and a half before the race. And just about 45 minutes to go, it started packing it down before the race. And there were several drivers that had experienced problems. Sebastian Vettel had to go start from the pit lane. I believe he changed his brakes. There was a Renault that I think that went off on the formation lap. Bottas received a puncture. And yes, so it's all kicking off before on the reconnaissance lap when they go to the grid. But goodness me, Charlie, it started pelting down. You know what it meant? A very exciting race and a wet start. And we love a wet start, Charlie. And it was certainly a very exciting to see a wet start to the race.
And as well as that, Charles Leclerc went off on the formation lap down at Aqua Minerale as well, which wasn't exactly great for his start, wasn't it?
No, Charles Leclerc thankfully managed to go back to his original grid position because he went back to his original position before the safety car line. So he managed to start where he was, thankfully, but he did go off. I mean, even if you can tell how slippy the track was, he was going off the track on the formation lap. That's how hard it was. Conditions were bad. I mean, everyone was pretty much starting on the wet tyres Gasly, I think, was the one that started on the wet.
Gasly started on wet, and I think another driver did as well.
But even on those on Inter, like Charles Leclerc, really struggle on the formation lap as well. And then that led to the start, Charlie, and Max Verstappen from third. We did absolutely fantastic start. He got away perfectly, and he took Lewis at turn 1 as well. It was a very committed move. Obviously, Lewis complaining that he was forced off the track. I don't agree. I don't agree with that. Stewart's didn't agree with that at all, so he got no further action. It was just a great start for Verstappen, and off he went into the sunset for a few laps, and there onwards. It was the perfect start for Verstappen, really, and that's what kind of led into his race win.
But there was loads of action after the first lap. I think there was at least a couple of safety cars today, and the first safety car, I think, the Nicholas Latifi. With your Williams fan, you had such a great qualifying, and then today it was a disaster. Both drivers out. And Latifi, I don't know what happened to him. He lost it going into Aquamella
Latifi,
and then
Latifi, Latifi got spun out like Marto. He spun out in the chicken positions. So that was bad enough. Went to the gravel. He managed to get himself back on the track without losing too much positions. But didn't see Nikita Mazepin, or some people in the community call him Mazespin, behind him. We'll get back to that later on. But no fault of their own, to be fair, on this one. Latifi didn't see Nikita Mazepin, and Mazepin made contact. And Latifi with a hefty shunt into the wall on the way there. It was a very heavy shunt, Charlie, as well. He was okay, thankfully, Latifi, but that was a right old mess. With the front wing, and that caused the first safety car, Charlie. I have to say, it was racing. It's no fault of anyone's, really. Even Mazepin. I mean, I know we get slags off on here and stuff like that. We can rightly slag him off for some things, but that wasn't one of them. And it was a racing incident, and Latifi ended his day early.
He did, but for the second Williams of George Russell, we saw today a horrendous crash down into the first corner at Tamburello between Valtteri Bottas and George Russell. And Zach, what did you make of this shunt down at the first corner?
Yeah, second year in a row for George Russell, crashing at the Emilia-Morago Grand Prix. Not exactly his favourite track at the moment. But he did come into contact with Valtteri Bottas, who had an awful qualifying anyway, Charlie, and was struggling at parts of the race. This one seems to be just going to Tamburello, where Russell looks like he went and put his wheels on the grass whilst trying to do an overtake, and obviously because he touched the wheels, he ended up sliding into Bottas. Thankfully, the car launched a little bit. Thankfully, for the halo, it was there to protect Bottas. Thank goodness it did its job as well. But goodness me, it was a high-speed crash that ran at 200 miles an hour, Charlie. Both drivers got off lightly. And Russell was... You saw what happened after the crash. Russell was furious because he thought he was deliberately got punted off by Bottas. And, you know, he went up to his car, he obviously complained. He complained about that Bottas was trying to kill him and everything like that. Bottas was displaying the middle finger whilst in the middle of that. Bottas complained he couldn't hear what he was saying. So it was a bit of a middle finger for nothing. If you heard that, you could be asking, you know, are you all right? He could be pushing up his middle finger, which wouldn't be the most pleasant replies. But yeah, a furious George Russell after that, Charlie, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
I have to say though, Charlie, the stewards
fuming on the team radio, which we won't repeat because there was a lot of swearing. But both are absolutely livid. And I think, was it Russell sort of tapping Bottas on the helmet, saying, "What are you doing, mate? You're blocking me."
On his helmet, yeah. No, stewards took no further action after that, Charlie, after the race had happened and reviewed the incident. I think at the end of the day, I think Russell was angry because he's obviously involved in this big crash. It was quite scary for him personally. So I can understand why he would think it's dangerous. I think when he looks back at it, he seems to be defending his actions. When I watched the post-race interviews, he seemed to be defending his actions. But nevertheless, I think he cooled down a bit, and I think it was right to declare it a racing incident. I think Bottas, according to stewards, Bottas didn't move, although I did see slight movement. I think it was Russell.
Yeah, it was a very late move he made, didn't
put it on grass. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think it's probably a racing incident anyway, because Russell put it on the grass, lost control of his car. I don't think
it was from George's view, though, because he said it was very similar to like the way Max Verstappen, Verstappen's defending a few years ago, 2015, I think it was, where he moves over very late to try and cover the braking zone. Yeah, that's what he reminded Bottas was, and he said it was very dangerous.
Yeah, and he claims there's this gentleman's agreement in place, which probably there is. But no, I don't think it's nothing like that. I can't see how it's anything like that. Personally, in my opinion, I can't see it qualifies for that sort of thing. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I agree with the stewards as a racing incident. They were both on track. It's unfortunate that he even went on the grass, and you know, you know, it's a really shame. I'm going to interrupt you here, Charlie, because Leicester City have just got through to the FA Cup final. So I support Leicester. So I'm just read the news. That's brilliant news.
Yeah, that's good sport news there. Leicester City are through to the FA Cup final. I don't know who they were playing, but they've won.
That's the team I support as well, Charlie. So I'm thrilled. Yeah. Sorry, I just had to interrupt you there, but
that's fine.
Yeah,
we always want the football. A lot of people in this country love football, so no, that's great. And actually, at Wembley next month, there's going to be 20,000 fans. Just to confirm, that's under a COVID-19 pilot event that the government have announced. So that is very interesting. But back onto the F1 now. Sergio Perez, Zach, oh dear. He started off with a fantastic qualifying, but went downhill all the way from there.
Yeah, Perez has been Red Bull's only driver to outperform Verstappen since Daniel Ricciardo in 2018. He did a splendid job in qualifying, and then the race. Well, he did. He had a really poor. Well, basically, he spun first of all. Then he spun on the safety car, no doubt. No other than the safety car, Charlie. And then he overtook under the safety car, which is not allowed in the regulations. Even if you spun off, you have to keep your position if you spun out. So he got a 10-second time penalty. And then the red flag came after George Russell and Bottas's incident, Charlie. And he was in fourth. So it looked like he was able to competitively challenge if needed to be. And then he spun again. Yeah, and that just ruined his race. I think Perez would have been competitive if he managed to not spin out. Now, I should point out though, Charlie, that the soft tyres was running its course anyway at the end of the race. He could have got on the pace, really, to be fair, early on if he had kept his positioning, and he could have really been up there. But he spun out, and that soft tyre went to waste. I think Charlie on the restart. Right, a bit of a shame. But we've shown how he can be good when he's actually driving well. But it's just a shame that he ended up doing that. It took a tank slapper and went off the track, unfortunately.
And Zach as well, it was a difficult race for strategists because it started off very wet. I mean, parts of the circuit were dry, parts of it were wet. But it was really difficult, wasn't it, to sort of get the correct crossover point, when to pit. And it was, and Max Verstappen was complaining it was too wet, but then Hamilton, I think, also said it was time for slicks. But Verstappen was the first to pit. What did you make of when they changed over to the slick tyres at the crossover point?
Well, when I looked at the thing is, Charlie, is obviously Red Bull strategy. Red Bull was the first to call the bluff, basically. So they went on slicks, and I had to, it looked a bit interesting because obviously Hamilton then, once he saw Verstappen went in, he basically did hammer time, basically, and he went on a rocket and tried to go as fast as he can on those intermediate tyres. And I was paying, but the thing is, Charlie, I was paying attention to the gap and the pit stop times, the how long you take to go in the pits, do your pit stop, and then come out the pit lane again. Oh, excuse me. And they were averaging, and all of them were averaging about 30 seconds, Charlie. And the gap from Verstappen to Lewis was about 28. So I had a feeling already that Verstappen was going to be able to get out and just be able to get out in front of Lewis. Now, Lewis wasn't helped as well, but he did get out in front. He did stay out in front of Verstappen, but it didn't help as well, Charlie, that Lewis had a slow pit stop.
Yeah, front right was slow getting on.
And that resulted in a 4-second pit stop rather than a 2-second pit stop. So I thought he was going to come out anyway, in front, in behind of Verstappen, because I was paying very close attention to the gap and the pit stop times, because there was other drivers that was coming in at the same time, so it was really helpful. But yes, Red Bull got it right. Red Bull got it right. They managed to. Lewis did not go fast enough. Did not maintain enough. Did not get that gap. And Verstappen came out in front. So it was the right call by Red Bull at the end of the day. And they did right.
Yeah, they did. So I'm going to go over the order now of this race. So I'll go over the order now. Verstappen was first for Red Bull, Hamilton second for Mercedes, Lando Norris third for him. Great result for the McLaren driver there. That's his first podium since Austria 2020, the opening round. And Zach, what did you make of Lando today in the McLaren?
Lando Norris has been fantastic today, Charlie. He was fantastic. Such an excellent drive by him. The strategy put on the soft tyres really did pay off, I think. And obviously, that I think there was a few obviously the incidents helped him as well. But that red flag helped him because he put on the soft tyres, and we did. I must admit, obviously with a cooling track temperature, it helped because if it was on a hot track, that soft wouldn't have lasted till the end of the race, Charlie, and he would have had to done a two-stopper. But obviously because it was a cool track, that soft tyre was really, really good. It was really useful. So my personal opinion is on this, Charlie, is that Lando did a fantastic drive, and he held off the Ferraris and Lewis Hamilton for a period as well, Charlie. It was just he got overtaken in the end by Hamilton, but he held off the Ferraris. I think being the Hamilton trying to be in a scrap battle with the Ferraris, help Lando Norris at the end because he was able to defend whilst the others were defending and attacking behind him. But that soft tyre really, really worked on pace until the end. Obviously, the tyres run out. He was reporting a few problems, but he managed that problems, and he was fantastic, Lando. What a great drive he did today.
Well done, Lando. Great result as well. Fourth went the way of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Great result for both Ferraris, actually. Fourth and fifth for Leclerc, and also Carlos Sainz Jr., fifth for Ferrari. Daniel Ricciardo was sixth for McLaren. Pierre Gasly scores a decent haul of points for AlphaTauri in seventh. Lance Stroll was eighth for Aston Martin. Ninth was Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, so he finished where he started, where he qualified. And Fernando Alonso takes the final point for Alpine. Then we've got Sergio Perez in 11th, Yuki Tsunoda in 12th, and Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi, the last of the classified finishers. Sebastian Vettel did retire because he had a gearbox issue. And Zach, Yuki Tsunoda had a very crazy weekend, didn't he? Including a huge crash in qualifying at Variante Alta.
Yeah, disappointing for Yuki Tsunoda. I should point out as well, Charlie, just to show you where. Kimi finished 9th originally, but got a 30-second penalty for a safety car infringement. So he dropped from 9th to, I think, 14th, I think, something around that area. But yeah, Yuki Tsunoda, difficult weekend for him, unfortunately. He had a hefty crash in Q1. And then, well, he struggled in the race, really, to be fair, Charlie. He struggled a lot. He went off as well. And one of those drivers that went off, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a difficult weekend overall for Yuki Tsunoda. A really shame, really. I think hopefully this will be a one-off because he's got massive potential in that he has. I'm looking forward to him seeing the future because when he can get into battle, when he needs it, he needs it. So yeah, I look forward to seeing Yuki Tsunoda in the future. I don't think it's the end of the world. It's one bad race. Just disappointing for him today, really, Charlie.
Yeah, it is certainly. So we're now going to play for you a video of the Bottas and Russell collision on this podcast. Have a listen to this right now.
Valtteri Bottas and George Russell, who are out of this race. Absolutely top speed there, 295 kilometers per hour. What's that, 180 odd miles per hour? On board with George Russell. What the was he doing? Honestly, for what? What the? Oh. Are you okay, doctor? This is an angle. It was a little jink right and left, wasn't it? Yeah. And at that point, Russell's wandered onto the grass, the wet grass, of course.
Well, he believes that it was Valtteri's fault.
I got the slipstream, I pulled out, and just as I pulled out, Valtteri moved very slightly, and that just put me offline and put me onto the wet stuff. And in perfectly dry conditions on a very ordinary circuit, it's dangerous.
From my point of view, obviously, I stopped for the dry tires, and it was a bit of a struggle. Took time to get them to work, and George got close and decided to go for a move. Obviously, the track is quite narrow. There's only one dry line, and he went from the outside. There was space all the time for 2 cars, but didn't make any sense, that move. He obviously lost it and hit me.
And that was the reaction there between both drivers. And Zach, what did you make of the reaction between Bottas and Russell after the collision?
Well, clearly they're blaming each other. I think that really sums it up, really, is you're blaming each other. At the end of the day, if they're blaming each other, that means it's each other's fault and there's no further action and racing incident. So if they're blaming each other, then yeah. I still maintain my view, it was a racing incident. I would say 60-40 Russell's fault in some ways as well, because he went on the grass and because of the slap on the head as well, really, to Bottas. But I still maintain my view as a racing incident.
Yeah, and I mean, Zach as well, the crash was huge. I mean, I'm glad both drivers are okay. They did pass a medical check, and they both are okay. But we're going to go now and have a look at the championship whilst we're here. I'm just getting the standings up now. And that was the 2020 standings. We're just getting the 2021 standings up for you now. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton, 1 point clear of Max Verstappen in first place there. Lando Norris third for McLaren. Charles Leclerc 7 points back. And Valtteri Bottas only fifth in the standings after today's quite horrendous race for Hamilton's team. And we go next, Zach, I believe, to Portimao. Is that correct? We go to Portimao next.
Portimao in Portugal. Yes, we go to the Portuguese Grand Prix. It is Autodromo Interlagos do Algarve. That's where it is as well. Yeah, there he is. So that's yes, it is. It's a 4.684 kilometer circuit in 2 weeks' time. We went there last season. That was where Lewis Hamilton broke, I believe, the record.
Yes.
For the amount of wins in F1. So yeah, that's where it is. It's a nice fast circuit with an interesting turn 1, and then turn 2 and 3. It's all a bendy section, with lots of steep areas, elevation changes. It's a very old school style circuit, Charlie. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
It's a very old school circuit. Portimao, that's right. It's opened 2008, as well. And yes, it's a really fun track. It's there's only going to be one DRS zone, I should point out as well. It's on the start-finish straight, because everything else is you can't really do anything else there apart from the front stretch. But or you could have done it to turn 4 to 5 if you needed to. But yes, the middle part of the circuit is bendy, it's cornery, and it's fast. Let's just say that, Charlie. Lewis Hamilton won here last year, as I said. But yes, I think it's one of those old school circuits that I really enjoy.
And Zach, Max Verstappen was saying on Thursday that he wanted a second DRS zone down at Imola, potentially out of Variante Alta into Ravazza. Do you think they could potentially do that for next year's race?
I think, well, if that is going to be next year's race, we don't know. There wasn't going to be one this year normally, but I think in future that could be done. I mean, to be fair, though, the DRS got extended by 100 meters on the start-finish straight this year, Charlie, and it was a bit overpowering because you could do a lot more overtakes this year with the 100-meter extension in the front string straight, which is actually, by the way, not a straight, I should say. But I think if you're going to do another DRS zone, reduce the one on the front stretch by 100 meters. Go back to where it really was, and then put the second DRS zone out there. Yeah,
so that's Formula One. We're going to go to the next race, which will be at Portimao in a couple of weeks' time. Lewis Hamilton leads the championship by a point from Max Verstappen. We're going to move on to that now to NASCAR. Last weekend, we had if I can remember the name, it was we're at Martinsville.
Don't worry, I forget all the time.
The Martinsville Blue Emu Maximum Pain Relief 500. Now, when we were on, the race was delayed, but we have the race results in, and it was 2 from 2, Zach, for Martin Truex, wasn't it?
Yeah, Martin Truex Jr. was the first double winner of this year. Great guy from him. He basically become the first one of them, which is excellent news as well. So the race run of new winners this year stopped. Martin Truex Jr. As well won that race. Good job by him. I should point out, Charlie, that the current race, Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond, is currently on now. Truex led the started on pole for that as well. So yeah, I don't know what the standings are at the moment, but it looks like Truex was on Hamlin. Yes, 11. On starting the restart on top. He's a potential contender for obviously victory if he keeps this up. We don't know what's going to happen with him during the next couple of hours, obviously, whilst this is on. But yeah, I very much look forward. I very much look forward to seeing the results later on.
So what did you make of last weekend's action at Martinsville?
I thought it was good. It was nice as well. Obviously, got delayed a little bit. Because they were under the lights, but goodness me, there was some action. There was a big one in there as well. A few cars got caught up on the backstretch, but overall it led to a Truex victory, and he did very well. He got there in the end, and he led his car to victory.
And as well as that, we Chase Elliott finishing second. That's a great result for him because he's struggled a lot of this year.
Yeah, I said last year that Elliott was a contender. And he finished second, so I wasn't too far off, was I? I mean, Chase Elliott has done normally quite well on Martinsville. He's done quite well there, and I knew he would be a contender. He normally rockets way through, so getting second was well done by him. He did well.
And third, I believe, from the Martinsville race was, I'm just getting it up now, Denny Hamlin in that one. Denny Hamlin finishing third. And I don't think he's won a race yet.
No, I don't think so.
But I think he leads one of them leads the championship.
Yeah, he's obviously leading so far from what I'm seeing. I think he's leading at the moment. That's what I understand at the moment. So he could technically win today, but that depends on what happens as well. But let me try and get the standings. It's actually it's Hamlin at the moment leading. We'll get Logano behind him. Truex is third. Byron fourth at the moment. I'm just looking at currently what's happening. But let's
Carl
look at the
Larson
standings.
Fourth. Blaney fifth, Byron sixth, Elliott's up to seventh, but he's still a long way off the lead. Brad Keselowski's ninth, Kevin Harvick's eighth. He's also won a race. Christopher Bell 10th. He won the O'Reilly Auto Parts 253. Carl Busch is 11th. Austin Dillon is 12th. Chris Buescher 14th. He's had a decent year, Chris Buescher. And of course, the Daytona 500 winner.
Surprised me, yeah.
16th at the moment. And Zach, we go to the playoffs in September, and obviously, the playoffs is a very, very big event. Obviously, we go to some very popular circuits. What circuits do you think are going to be interesting for the playoffs coming up in September?
Well, let me tell you something, Charlie. Talladega is always an exciting circuit to go to playoffs as well. Talladega is always that big super speedway where anything can really happen. You go 3-4 wide. It's a super speedway. There's bound to be a big crash there, whatever happens as well. Let's look at also as well. Richmond is also going there in September. Darlington as well. That's hosting in South Carolina. Bristol, that'll be on the tarmac, not on the dirt, as well. And obviously, there's Phoenix as well, which is the final race.
Texas, I believe, might
Texas,
be hosting a couple.
Texas is hosting the first race of the round of 8. Bristol was hosting the last round of 16. Charlotte, the last on the road course, the round of 12. They're obviously racing it on the speedway and the road course.
Yeah, that would be for the Coca-Cola 600. That's the longest NASCAR race. It's 600 miles long.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
Is that what do you make of the Charlotte Roval? Is it a good addition to the NASCAR season?
Yeah. The Charlotte, the road course is very interesting, very entertaining. You have tight turn ones, a bendy middle part of the circuit, tight as well, and then you have those incident a few years ago on the backstretch where they added a corner there, and you have some very jumpy incidents as well. Sometimes people would miss the chicane, going to the barriers. So yeah, it's full of corners, packed full of corners. And mistakes are likely, very likely. You can't really room for error.
They have added a chicane down that straight, haven't they? Especially down, I think, on the exit into about turn 10 or 11. There's a chicane down there. They never used to be. Used to go straight round into the first corner, and it's a very without the Roval circuit there. Charlotte is very fast. Yeah,
absolutely. Charlotte is fast. It's obviously that they used to host the All-Star race, but now Texas is hosting that this year. I remember it was Bristol last year that hosted the All-Star race. It's Texas this year. Normally Charlottesville Motor Speedway has been the host of the All-Star race for many years. And it's very exciting to host there. I'm not sure really Texas is the right track to host the All-Star race, but that's just my opinion about it. But I think Charlotte has been good speedway to host a track. Bristol was very good hosting the track last season. But yes, Texas will be interesting. I'm not quite 100% sure about that one, but I think they'll do well.
Yeah,
I think they'll do well.
So that will be the next round. Is currently at the moment in Richmond. We'll keep you updated with all that news from Richmond. That's the Toyota Owners 400, by the way, that's currently on at the moment. But Zach, we're going to move on now back to Formula One, and then we're going to move on to IndyCar. Formula One have announced the Miami Grand Prix for 2022. Are you excited for this new edition?
Yes, yes, a new race next year in Miami. That's in USA. That's Florida. It's going to take place outside the Red Rock Stadium. It's where the Miami Dolphins MFL team is, Charlie. What a great location for it. It's going to be a 19-corner circuit. I will find it. I'll get it up here because I saw this earlier. Let me just find it because I did see it somewhere.
It's a very interesting track, isn't it?
Yes, very interesting.
I have the circuit up here. It looks amazing, the Miami track. Like, I've just got a photo up here. It's going to have potentially 3 DRS zones, and it's going to be an interesting. It's outside the Hard Rock Stadium, so this track looks really cool. Actually, I can't wait to see the drivers and teams in action at Miami, and it's an interesting track. 19 corners. It's
19 really corners. Start-finish line is right next to the Red Rock Stadium. That would be incredible for the spectators to watch from. And then you have a turn 1, turn 2 looks like very fast. 3 and 4 looks very. This is going to be a very fast circuit, Charlie. I certainly think there's DRS zone for the front finish straight. And yeah, as
8
well.
through to 11 is going to be very fast as well.
8 through to 11, very fast. And then it gets a bit bendy at the points of the circuit, Charlie. You got this left and then a right, then a shot and then a left, and then a very sharp left into a right, and then onto a very long backstretch, Charlie. That'll be something to see. There'll be probably a DRS zone halfway through that.
Yeah.
Into 17, then into 18, and then back onto 19, where the start finish straight is. as well. That'll probably be DRS zone next to the Red Rock Stadium, Charlie. That will be an incredible viewpoint to look from, Charlie. That'll be such a great view.
And Zach as well, like
so
this
good.
race had to go through negotiations last week. I'm sure the governor of Miami has certainly invested a lot in getting this race organised.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Charlie, Miami's been a bit on and off. It looked like we're going to have it in 2018, 2019. And then the organizer as you said no. And then everyone's been keep pushing. And they've got it, Charlie. They got it as well. But in the end, they got it. And that's great to see because the track looks interesting as well. I like it. Certainly for potential overtakes. Obviously, it's going to be a street circuit, Charlie. So I'm just hoping as well that I hope there's going to be some overtaking zones because most of these street circuits seem very narrow these days, which is not the most ideal for overtaking. You don't want a Monaco we don't want a hundreds of Monacos. I mean, with great respect, because otherwise you wouldn't get any overtaking. So I'm just hoping they keep the track wide enough so that people can overtake. I mean, certainly the backstretch looks like a place to be overtaken, no doubt for certain. And for some of the corners, you may be able to do one into turn 1 and maybe 2 if you're lucky. The rest of it looks tricky, but so far, I like the look of it.
Yeah, it looks cool actually. And so that will be next year in Miami. I don't know what round it's going to be. We'll let you know when the calendar's announced fully.
Well, as far as I'm read, Charlie, there's going to be a bit of a gap between the US Grand Prix and the Miami Grand Prix. So that suggests to me that it probably be held. My guess is probably going to be held in June after what normally be Canada next year. So that's probably where I think it's probably going to be held. Probably in June is my best guess, and that's when normally the Canada race is held. And so that's probably where I think we're going to go, in my opinion, because they're going to keep the gap.
Yeah. I don't think Canada's going to be on this year's F1 calendar because I know Justin Trudeau's saying that there's a third wave over in Canada at the moment, or COVID.
Yes, it looks like there's going to be no official word yet, Charlie. Yeah, no official word yet, Charlie, but it looks like it's going to be off by the looks of it. Possibly replaced by Turkey, by the way, from what I have read, which will be a good replacement. Istanbul produced a fantastic race last year, and it'll be very surreal to go back to Istanbul and do it all over again.
I think it's a shame if we didn't see Canada on there because I know that Stroll comes from Canada, and obviously they had Jacques Villeneuve as well, a former Canadian. It's a shame. I think even though you're still in a pandemic and it's difficult to sort of fly around the world and know in countries that are still in lockdown, it's very difficult to sort of find out where F1 races can be held.
Yeah, absolutely. But clearly there's an interest because there's people do want to sign up. There's countries and areas that do want to sign up for races. Obviously, there's going to be this race going to be 24 races next year, which is going to be a bit of a stretch. That's only half the season. But hopefully we can rotate some of the races. That would be better because then otherwise we wouldn't have a huge limit otherwise on resources, stretching resources, that sort of thing. They're going to have to be careful, obviously, on that end.
Yeah. So that is the Miami Grand Prix next year. We're going to move on now to IndyCar. Oh, wow. IndyCar's back on today. And it's a Barber Motorsport Park. And I've just looked up, Zach, and there's been a huge crash in the race. I've just literally seen some harrowing footage.
God.
Of a huge crash.
Oh my God.
There's the image there. It's a horrendous crash down at Barber Motorsport Park.
Yeah, I need to look at this. I haven't seen it. Let me just watch this actually because I actually have seen it. My word. That took several drivers. That's a lot of drivers that took taken out. That looks like a bit of a pile-up.
It's probably a red flag or a safety car there. It's not very... It's a horrible crash. I've just tweeted this through. It's a horrendous crash.
It's a
You just got
mess.
under... Yeah.
Deary
Jimmy
me,
Johnson's been involved.
That is a bit
as
of a
well.
mess.
Joseph Newgarden's been involved. Felix Rosenquist, Colton Herter, drivers that have literally involved. Romain Grosjean's avoided it. It's a horrible crash.
Bit of a pile-up.
Down at Barber.
Yeah, a bit of a pile-up, Charlie, by the looks of what I've just seen.
And that's not good. Because, I mean, Patricia O'Ward started on pole, but I hope all those drivers are okay because it's a horrible show.
They probably will be fine. It looks more of a pile-up than a, smash, like, bang, 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 crash and then ripped car apart. I think it's more of a pile-up that just caught several drivers rather than something huge. I think so. That doesn't look that bad.
Zach, what do you make of Romain Grosjean's debut in IndyCar this year?
Do you know, I watched qualifying yesterday actually. I saw qualifying, and my goodness, he did really well. He nearly got into the Super Pole last 6. Just got missed out. Unfortunately, rather a shame. He got knocked out in the last few moments. But for debut, he did really well, Charlie. Lesser could be said of Jimmy Johnson though, who did struggle in qualifying. But yeah, a very, very good effort from him.
It was. Grosjean was 7th quickest.
7th, that's well. Excellent. And he's obviously racing well, obviously driving well, considering he's still got a little burn to his one of his thumbs. But he's obviously driving that car well. It's very adaptive for him.
What do you make, Zach, of Barber Motorsports Park? Do you think that's a good round to start IndyCar off?
Yeah, I think it is. It's fast. Yeah, there's a lot of overtaking zones. There's a few elevations as well. And a lot of overtaking opportunities there, Charlie. A lot of action could happen, like we've just seen, unfortunately, on the first lap there, first couple of laps. But yeah, there's a lot of potential, a lot of overtakes. So there's potential for lots of action. There
is, and we'll keep you updated with the IndyCar action because it's a 90-lap race of Barber Motorsports Park, and the reigning champion is Scott Dixon, who won last year, and Joseph Newgarden will surely be going after him this year to claim revenge. So that's currently on live at Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama, where that race is. The Honda Indy Grand Prix presented by
Alabama.
Alabama, presented by AmFest. That's currently on at the moment. But we're going to end this podcast, Zach, off by talking about the Australian Grand Prix, because later this year, Melbourne is coming back to life with the Australian Grand Prix. And things are going to be looking a little bit different, aren't they, Zach? Because there's been some track changes.
Yes. There's going to be some track changes later this year. We're going to see some interesting changes to that circuit. I've seen there's a winding of some corners. There's a new bend as well. I've got the F1 article up as well. So there's 7 corners really modified. So the turn 1 and 2 is going to be widened by 2.5 meters. 3 to 4 is going to be widened by 4 meters. 6 and 7 is a widening of 7.5 meters. And 9 and 10 is gone. It's just going to be a turn 9 now, Charlie, because they're going to remove the chicane there and go to more of a fast sweeping 9 and then into 10 and then more into 11. 13, I've seen they're straightening and widening the corner by 3.5.
Yeah, that's going to be slightly more banked, but that should give us more overtaking.
16. Yeah, 15 and 16 is going to be widened by 3.5 meters. So that's later this year, Charlie. Obviously in Australia, but I've checked it, and yeah, I agree with some of the changes. It looks. I mean, we haven't actually seen it in real life. That's the thing, though, Charlie. But there's obviously pictures of development. Looks good. You can tell there's going to be a really big sweeping corner happening Yeah, and I like the look of it, Charlie. I like the look of it. Into 9, 10. Oh, that looks very good.
It's going to be very fast.
From
It's going
what
to be
I've
so
seen.
much faster than the original circuit with that new change.
It is. That we're going to break the lap records, obviously, because we don't have a chicane at 9, 10 now. But yeah, we're going to slight warning at 13, so that probably will slow it at 13 by the looks of it. But the rest of it, I think, Charlie, is going to be made up of 9 and 10 from what I have seen, and it looks good. It looks really good, Charlie. Obviously, haven't seen it in real life. We've seen it in the plans and the pictures, not real, but the simulations, should we say? But it has the potential, I think, Charlie.
And Zach, they've spent a lot of money on this, haven't they, as well? Is this money well spent, potentially?
Yeah, I hope it is. I mean, I don't think originally from what I read, we weren't going to see it until 22. But obviously because the Australian Grand Prix got delayed this year because of COVID, because of the quarantine systems, Charlie, that they've actually fast-tracked the changes. They've got enough time to fast-track it. So we're going to see it earlier than what we expected. And I'm looking forward to seeing the changed layout in some corners, Charlie.
It's going to be very good. I think. What do you think the best section they've changed is? What do you think looks the best on the Albert Park circuit?
I think 9 and 10 probably looks the best because you're gonna go into that corner much faster now. I'm interested to see whether they're going to be able to go flat out through 11 and 12. Now, because of the chicane at 9 and 10 originally, they would slow the cars down, and they would 11 and 12 could be taken flat out. Now, I'm not sure it's going to be possible now. You'll probably have to brake. But I think 9 and 10 allows you to get more of an opportunity for overtaking, potentially, going through the middle of 10 and just before 11. I'm not sure about 13. It's widened a bit. I mean, like, they're widening some of it, so you've got more opportunities to overtake. I mean, turn 14, turn 3 and 4 looks interesting. 6 and 7, wow. I mean, they're definitely widening them up. Straightening, widening. It's going to look good, Charlie.
It's a lot wider, Zach, than the original circuit, and I think as well. I'm hearing there could be a DRS zone down from the exit of say 9 and 10 into that chicane. How good would that be if there's a DRS zone down there?
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to be careful because obviously cars turn easily. Because obviously, you open the rear wing, you're letting out a lot of air, and you could spin that car easily. Now, it'd be great to see 10, 11. I think it's possible, actually, looking at it. You can do it through 12 and 13, 12 just before 13. I think there's normally one there anyway, and on the front stretch. But and obviously you could do one just before turn 3 and after 2. So there's 3 potential DRS zones, Charlie. I'm looking at this.
I think the new section is going to be really challenging. I think this is going to slash lap times by about 5 seconds. And Andrew Westacott, who's the CEO of the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, actually praised the changes as well, because it means as well, unlike the circuit, it also gives like cyclists a greener route as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's obviously organisers taking the fact they were thinking about emissions and energy saving as well, Charlie. And because not only this affects let me just say this not only affects like the Australian Grand Prix track as well, Charlie, but this is a street circuit. This is a temporary circuit, so that obviously it's used by people in real life, cars driving that road as well, Charlie. Just normal cars driving that road, and yeah, they drive on that road, so this will be probably more energy efficient, according to what the CEO said. So that can only be a good thing. I have to say, Charlie, I'm getting to become one of those eco warriors where you think about the planet, and that's only can only be a good thing.
It's an interesting move what they've done at the circuit, but I support it. I actually really think that the new changes look really good.
Yeah,
and It's
Yeah, I
something
agree.
that racing, you want wheel-to-wheel action, especially at Albert Park.
Yeah,
It's a difficult
absolutely.
circuit to overtake on. The
Yeah.
problem I had with the original Albert Park, Zach, was that it's the first round of the season. It's a narrow track. It's difficult to overtake on. Now that they've changed some of it up and widened some of the corners, you theoretically could get more wheel-to-wheel action, especially on the sections like through the first sector, particularly into 13.
Yeah.
As well with, and the thing is as well,
absolutely.
the removal of that chicane down at 8 and 9, that used to catch a lot of drivers out. You used to get a dirty air through there very easily. With that new fast section, it could make things a lot easier to follow another car through there.
Yeah, and that's crucial, because do you remember, Charlie, when 2017 started and we had those new regulations come in, and there was a lot of criticism after the first race because there was very little about the overtakes there was into the single figures, and these new cars was not very well received. But I think since then we've improved the overtaking. Obviously upgrades have helped, some changes has helped, and if anything, making changes to improve overtaking only makes it a good thing, I think, Charlie.
It does, Zach. It does, Zach. And I have to say that the changes that are coming to Albert Park in the coming months, all been hyped by so many. It's been hyped by the media, particularly Formula One, hyping this up massively over the next few months. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo said he felt very sorry not to be in Australia because of the coronavirus situation. And Zach as well, it's very difficult it's very difficult to sort of predict these quarantine measures, because they're very tough in Australia, aren't they, for any sporting event?
Yeah, I'm just hoping by the time we get to November, I think when October, November, when this is happening, then we should have the quarantine system relax a little bit so that F1 can take part. I think that's probably why they moved it in the first place, because they couldn't work with a viable quarantine system, but they could reschedule the race to later in the season. That would have helped. So yeah, I think hopefully F1 can get workaround with that quarantine thing and not have to quarantine for 14 days. Otherwise, the race is not viable.
Yeah, I think as well, Zach, it's the new variants of COVID as well, like the India variant that's been reported in the news as well. And they're like concerned that thing could spread to Australia and could impact the race potentially going forward. Because obviously the India variant, as you all know, first emerged in India and it's in the UK now. But it's like they're concerned about, obviously Formula One have to fly around all these different countries. So they're exempt technically from these strict quarantine rules. But I mean, it's difficult, Zach, isn't it? Do you think it's still plausible that they could do it despite the COVID-19 variant fears?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's plausible. I think Australia have dealt with the COVID, and I think it's very much plausible they were on for November.
It's interesting, Zach, with the quarantine in Australia, very stringent over there. It's 14 days, I believe, of any arrivals. So Formula One would have to work around that massively. But all I can say is we just hope and pray November comes and we'll be racing at Albert Park. And Daniel Ricciardo certainly wants to put a smile on his Australian fans this year, doesn't he?
Yeah. That would be great to see.
Has Daniel Ricciardo ever won at Albert Park? I don't think he has, but he has finished second once.
Yeah, he's never won in front of his home race. He probably won't this year. Obviously, he's in the McLaren. I don't want to jinx that. It's possible we could get a few surprises along the way. But he's been on the podium, but he's never run a race in front of his home crowd.
I think he got.
I don't know
he
whether
finished.
it will be possible.
Yeah, he finished on the podium in second in 2014, but he got disqualified for exceeding the maximum fuel flow.
Yeah, he got regulations. That was you're right. At the time, you're absolutely right. Because obviously the fuel regs, he they didn't use the correct fuel flow, so they got disqualified. He was on the podium then, and he got disqualified. Disappointing. That celebration only lasted a few hours, and then he got disqualified, which is very unfortunate. But rules are rules.
They are. And as
Yeah.
well as that, Zach, it's going to. We hope Daniel Ricciardo can see the Australian fans on the podium this year, but it's difficult. We're not sure on that one, and I just hope as well that event will go ahead. And the dates for the Australian Grand Prix are going to be coming up now for the 2021 Australian Grand Prix. That I believe is in November. We're just getting the dates up for you now for the Formula One Australian Grand Prix, 21st of November for that one. And that should be plausible when the quarantine measures hopefully do relax. Let's hope, and as well as that, let's hope that more people around the world are vaccinated as well. Because obviously, as the months go ahead, COVID vaccinations will increase. And Zach, before I finish, do you suspect more Formula One drivers will be taking vaccines?
Oh yes, they should, and they should promote the fact that they take the vaccines. I think they should absolutely promote it when they take the vaccines.
Because obviously some have had the Oxford AstraZeneca and the Pfizer jabs. I'm sure that obviously we've got companies like Moderna, Johnson & Johnson that are like single shots. They can be brought out. I think the Johnson & Johnson would be good for the F1 paddock because it's only a single dose, and they can get, once they've had that, they can get, they're fully vaccinated then. Could you see that as a potential option for Formula One?
I could see them taking, I don't know what, it depends on what they have in their local countries, but to be fair, I mean, Johnson & Johnson and Oxford have been plunged with blood clot concerns, rather unfortunately. Moderna or Pfizer are probably the right ones to take at the moment because they don't seem to be having issues as such. But yeah, I'm sure they'll promote it. Hopefully they promote it when they have the vaccine, because that's the best. That could be sending that message to the world that take the vaccine, so that's the best thing that they can do.
It sure is. But that's all we've got time for today on the Full Throttle podcast. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And we'll see you next time for another episode. Take care, everyone.